again, without me presenting anything else, I jump right back into a new activity called navigating the internet. And so it talks about client-server networks, that the internet's a client-server network, and what that means, and that it's divided into domains. And I like the idea of, in our CS Principles Internet curriculum, they talk about, well, just beforehand, what is a domain? What is an IP address? How does it work? And maybe that would be a good activity to do before this one.
Well, I noticed that, you mentioned the ARPANET or whatever. I mean, did you show the evolution of the internet and then how TCP/IP came to be? How actually these things are connected.
In
This
class, I do not.
Okay.
I just talk about the protocols and the rules. We go into more detail in my other classes.
We were on the internet. I was on the internet in the 80s.
Right.
Okay, and it was very textual. You would go or something like that.
Right.
We thought those were cool. So we had our little white books of IP address, but you had to know the IP address.
Right.
And so when
So DNS wasn't even around.
Yeah, and so then when DNS came out, when Tim Berners-Lee, HTML, World Wide Web Consortium, domain name servers, freed us.
Right. And so you didn't have to be the geeky person to use the internet. You could be a regular person.
But you go ahead and just go out and go.
So, so I think that would be a good activity to do maybe before this one. And so it just talks about domains, then it talks about the URL, and they all know what a URL is because they type them all the time. And so we discuss, well, I make them take a look at this and notice that it's divided into pieces. And a lot of times they don't have something this extensive when they type it in, but it becomes that extensive when the page actually shows up. And so I have them examine that. What are those subdomains and domains? And over here we have folders and files. And so so that's where it's talking about the files and the file names, and we talk about what if there's no file name at the end? What does that mean? Well, it means it's called index. Where that is, there it is. It's called index. If there's no file name at the end, it's called index. The file is called name tag. And so when we discuss this at the end, we talk about, well, why is that? Well, because you don't want to be typing. You don't want to have to type everything out. And that's the protocol they found. So again, we're going to find partners again, and they're going to take these URLs and break them down and say, okay, what's the protocol that's used? Well, this one is HTTPS and www, and the primary domain is .com, and the secondary one is Apple, and third level, well, there's not one. Well, what's the file path? Well, this would tell us that this is going into the main directory of the web server. And so there is no file path other than it's at the main directory. And the name is called index. And that wants to know what's the IP address. Well, how do I know that? Well, from that previous. Okay, I want them to tie those together. Of course, I could open up a command line and say ping apple.com, and it would tell me the IP too. But I don't tell them that yet. So they're going to probably go back and use their DNS query. And so I give them 4 or 5 of these just so they get the hang of that. And then we move to another way to communicate, or to get to web pages is through links, hyperlinks. And so here I just give them a link and I make them discover what's the URL of this link. And just because somebody gives you a link doesn't mean it's what it says it is.
Yeah.
Maybe I could put anything right there and right click and insert a hyperlink on it. Right? So I make them find out what that is. So they have to sometimes, and I don't tell them beforehand, but they have to figure out that I can just say edit my hyperlink, and there's the link here. Now, if that's on a web page, I can't do that, but because it's a Word document, they can. If it's on a web page, they may have to. On a web page, it'll be view. You can view the hyperlink, or in this case, I might have to copy it and paste it somewhere, and it would come up. So again, what IP address does that relate to? So again, they go back, figure out that, and then once the page loads up, what's the title of the page? Yes, maybe that's. Oh, I'm on the wrong thing. So again, okay, so how are these links related to URLs? So I make a connection between the two. And again, I haven't taught them anything yet. And then we move into actually creating web pages. Now, I don't spend a lot of time on this because they have another class that they do a little bit more of that in. But I have them go through and figure out, well, how can I view the language that made the web page? And so this kind of walks them through that. So they follow this link, and then they're supposed to this is Code Academy. So they're going to go to Code Academy, make an account. This is the first time they've been there. And make an account, and there's a HTML tutorial, and some kids they get all the way through that, and they're, can I go on into JavaScript? Yes, keep going. And so this kind of thing can take. You can give them a day to do that, or you can give them a week to do that if you have the time to do that. Dr. Gray doesn't like me to say that. Give them a week just to make web pages. The other thing I thought this did was give them an opportunity that they could use that as on their PT, innovation PT, that they could make a web page. So when they're done, whatever time I give them, the one class had more time because they were farther ahead. I make them just take a screenshot of wherever they're. So that kind of ends that activity. Any questions, comments on that one? Do you think these are things that will help you? And I haven't really taught anything about networking yet, but they've taught themselves a lot about it. And we've discussed a lot about it. We haven't gotten into any of the behind-the-scenes working, really, except the URLs and DNS. I haven't even really talked about that. One thing already, you have at least 3 things to talk about abstraction in the internet. URLs are an abstraction of the IP address, which is in itself an abstraction of bits. And so, because we haven't really gone into those details yet, I haven't talked about the abstractions of that.